Hello again, everybody. It's still Christmas Eve, but I had a need to come on again just because of some of the things that I just learned, and I wanted to share them with you. And one of the reasons I feel compelled to share as these things come up has to do with a verse in the Bible, Ezekiel 33:6. And what it says is, if the watchman sees the sword coming and does not blow the trumpet to warn the people, and the sword comes and takes someone's life, that person's life will be taken because of their sin, but I will not hold the watchman accountable for the blood. So basically, what that means is that it's watchman's responsibility to tell the people. If the people do nothing about it, then it's on them. But if the watchman knows something's coming and doesn't say anything, then the blood of those people is on the watchman. And I don't know why I feel compelled to be a watchman. It's something that God's placed on my heart. Um, and so I just want to warn you, what you do with that is up to you. I will do my best to give you tools to continue to have peace in your life, to thrive in this life, but I need to tell you what's going on. So I realized in my last video I talked a little bit about the border, but I didn't finish. I got off on a tangent. Surprise, surprise. What I was saying was there's 10 to 20 million people in this country from 190 different countries, from Iran, from Russia, from China, from Mexico, Venezuela, Guatemala, all over the world. And there's some things with that I think we need to be aware of. One is some of these are good people, but many are not. Many are controlled by the cartel and here as slaves to the cartel, and they're going to do what they need to get out of debt to them. And some of that will be nefarious. Some are just nefarious terrorist actors to begin with. Some are, I truly believe, foot soldiers for other countries like China and Russia, and they're coming here to literally do combat with us. So we talked about that a little bit with the drones. If you look at a map of where the Chinese have bought large amounts of farmland, a lot of them are near military bases that are now seeing drone activity. Well, think about it. Okay, the Chinese make some of the best drones in the world, as do the Iranians. So if they own farmland near a military base, the farmlands likely have barns and buildings on them, and they can use those to assemble these drones and operate them from, and then put them up, and nobody's going to see them. So the fact that they're coming out at night, no surprise to me. Okay. What are they planning to do with them? Well, I think some of it is surveillance. I think some of it is potentially bioweaponry and electromagnetic warfare. And we talked a little bit about that with what can be done with radio frequencies and mind control. We know that from some of the sicknesses, like in Havana, that we saw, where people got really, really ill from a sound. I believe that it doesn't even have to be an audible sound, okay? Um, I told you about a video I watched where people were outside when these drones showed up out in a rural area, and the people outside got a flu-like syndrome, where the people inside did not. So, what was causing it? Was it electromagnetic? Was it a vapor that they couldn't see that was an airborne, virus or something? I don't know. But you need to be aware that all of that is feasible. We live in a very high-tech world where they are doing things that we don't even know about. So, not to be a conspiracy theorist, not to, be fear, 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 because I don't fear, but I don't like surprises. I would much rather know what's going on and be mentally and physically and spiritually prepared than not know what's going on and then have something surprise me. So I do think that the Chinese and Iranians and Russians and other countries are sending people over to literally be foot soldiers and infiltrate and then at some point attack us. And I have said that for years now. And people at first thought I was crazy, but it's not looking so crazy now when you see all these military age men coming across. Some women, very few kids. I think the kids somehow are sent across in different ways so that they're trafficked. It's sad to me. We know of 500,000, and that probably means more like 1.5 million or more, and they are nowhere to be found. And as sad as it may seem, I think they've gone into sexual slavery and human sacrifice and other evil things. I think evil is that rampant in our world right now, and it's disgusting. I don't like to think about it, but it's real. So I think some of the drones that we're seeing are from foreign actors. I think some are our own country and being used for different things to desensitize us, to potentially cause havoc themselves. I would not put it past our own government to spray its own people, to just do scare tactics, to do other things just to stay in control. I've had my doubts for a couple years now, actually, pretty much since the not the 20, since before the 2020 election, that Trump would ever get to serve again. And I still feel that way until it happens. I'm not going to believe it. I mean, there we talked about a cornered predator, and that predator is Russia, it's China, it's Iran, and it's our own deep state. They are terrified of what may happen, and they're doing everything they can to unleash evil, to go after the good people of the United States, and to keep Trump out of power. And news just came out that he was briefed on potential nuclear attacks on our soil. Well, I've been saying that for a long time too. It's not a matter if, it's when. We have a tendency in this country to think that war is not going to break out here because we have two oceans on both sides of us and we're well protected. Well, look at Pearl Harbor. It happened. And now we have all these military age men on our soil. So are we really separated from them? I would say no. And we are not ready for it. We have sent a lot of our weaponry abroad. We have our fuel storages at an all-time low. And there's lots of ways to attack. We've seen all the attacks on food processing centers and mills and whatnot. I mean, it's just people, they don't report on it much, but it's still happening regularly. I mean, hundreds and hundreds of processing plants have been shut down. And, we're having over 1,000 railroad accidents a year, and a lot of those are carrying chemicals that are dangerous, and they're almost always happening near waterways, which means that those chemicals are getting in the water and potentially poisoning us. There have been talks about how weak our electrical grid is, how easy it would be to contaminate our water systems. So, what can you do? You don't want to live in fear, but I would recommend having a backup power source, and one that is not, a generator is great, but you may also just need to have an old-fashioned way of having heat from a wood stove that you can cook on, that you can produce light, that you can produce warmth, that you can cook. You're going to want to store food in ways that doesn't require refrigeration. If you have freezers, you're going to want to have a generator and pray that an EPM doesn't knock them out. I truly can't answer that. I mean, I've tried to educate myself on them, but I'm going to be honest, that is not something that really clicks in my head. And, the Fairway bag over one would protect it, but those are really expensive. And I don't know if the generator isn't fueled up and isn't active, if an EPM would destroy them. It appears that it will, but I don't know how that works. Okay, so I'm just going to be honest on that. But have a way to filter water, even if it's a drinking straw for camping that you can use with a filter on it, that you can put even in a pond or stream and get water out of. I have told you I use a Berkey, and because I'm on city water and I don't like the taste of chemicals in my water, I would prefer to have a well, but where I live, it's all bedrock, and wells are pretty unusual and very expensive to put in. But and start storing water. Okay. I generally don't like things in plastic, but on this one, I make an exception. Some water is better than plasticized water. So, you're always weighing things. But if there's a chemical that is deadly in the water, you're better off having filtered water and stored water than you are drinking that water and dying. Okay. As far as nuclear, probably wouldn't be bad to have some potassium iodide. You can get it on Amazon. It's not very expensive. Um, I don't know. Dirty bombs are more likely than a true nuclear attack. But Iran's been saying for over a year or two that they're close. A couple days away from a nuclear weapon. I personally think they already have it, and we're tying Israel's hands behind their back every time they threaten going after. But I pray that they do because we need to knock it out. But Pakistan already has nuclear weapons, and now they're saying that they have missiles that can reach the United States. North Korea has threatened to hit us. Russia, really, when you look at how far away it is from Alaska, is not very far. And so they can hit Alaska and Washington and Oregon pretty easily. Then you add nuclear subs, which can be hidden anywhere along the coast, and you put ICBM on them, and they can hit all the way into the middle of the country. So if they're going to hit, I would not be. If it were me, I would go after big cities, high populated areas: Washington D.C., Chicago, New York, L.A., Seattle, San Francisco, Denver, but also the military bases, especially the nuclear ones, because what they're going to want to do is stop a retaliatory attack. So if you're living in any of those areas, you know, be aware. You're not really going to be able to stop it. If it's going to happen, it's going to happen. But there is something that we can do, and I believe we saw it with this last budget. We saw people rally together, a lot of prayer, a lot of phone calling, and the budget got changed significantly, by 1,300 plus pages. I think we need to continue to stay in prayer. The power of corporate prayer is very, very strong. And maybe it won't stop war on our shores, but it could show, it gets God's attention and it shows, okay, there's bad leadership, but the people of the country aren't with that. If we allow the rebels and the crazies to be the loud voice that God hears, he's going to let it happen. Look, if you read the Bible, it happened over and over and over and over again to Israel, right? They would walk away from God. They'd follow Asherah. They would follow Moloch. When you look at abortions, we're basically sacrificing our babies to Moloch. And every time they did that, they broke God's heart and God retaliated. And that's why they went into slavery. That's why they got evil kings. That's why so much bad happened to them. Well, we can prevent that by being more like King David and saying, and glorifying God, giving thanks to God, and asking for his protection and letting him handle things. He can do things you and I can't do. And it may sound oversimplified, but I really think it is that easy. That's why he says you must be in a childlike state to come to the kingdom, to come to the throne, because we need to have that trust in him, just like a little child does in their parents. So just be aware, Iran's threatening to bomb us, and there's a lot of talk about how they're really feeling threatened. Well, I did the video before. A cornered predator is a dangerous predator, and that's where we have a lot of predators out there. We have a lot of adversaries that we're not taking seriously, or at least it doesn't appear so on the surface. It would not surprise me if we're actually asking them to do it, because this administration does not want to give up control and power. It's all about power, 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 and money. And they have a money laundering scheme that's beyond compare. It's bigger than anything I think that's ever happened in history, and they're getting very, very wealthy off of it. I think the cartels have something on this administration, and that's why they're being allowed to do what they're doing. I can't come up with another reason for it other than threats or blackmail from the cartels. I know China has blackmail on them. I mean, they are the best at honeypots and allowing people to do things in China, filming it and then using it to retaliate, including snuff films and all sorts of things. If you can think it, it has happened, is what I'm trying to tell you. Dark, dark. And I lived in Asia. I can tell you that even back in the 80s, really crazy things were happening. Mattresses in the middle of bars and people going at it, humpy, humpy, if you know what I mean. In the middle of a crowded bar. I've seen oral sex at the bar at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, in a quote unquote family friendly bar. So don't think that these things aren't happening in these countries. They are not the United States. And even here in the US, we have a lot of really ugly things happening, okay? So Just know that these threats are out there. I would not be surprised, just like when Israel was attacked on October 7th, it was the last day of Tabernacles. It was a holiday. It was very similar to our Christmas day. So don't be surprised if something happens tomorrow. Don't be surprised if something happens on January 1st. They're going to try and get us when we're down. Okay, it may be an EPM. It may be water contaminated. It might actually be a dirty bomb or nuclear. It may be a drone attack. It may be foot soldiers just stampeding towns and taking over with guns and whatnot. I don't know. But I think all of that is feasible. And we need to be ready mentally and have our families ready mentally. And you need to pay attention. Ladies, don't go to the store alone if you can help it. Go with your husband. Be prepared. Have some sort of protection. I keep bee spray by my door. It shoots 20 to 30 feet. I'm not going to kill somebody, but I'm going to blind them and I'm sure going to slow them down. So there's ways you can do it for, $3, $4, $5 for a can of bee spray. So it doesn't have to cost a lot. Byrna makes a gun that is legal that doesn't shoot bullets. It's not lethal, but it will sure cause somebody to stop and be down for a half hour or so. I mean, it's quite a lot of impact, kind of plastic bullet kind of type of thing. So there's options out there that you can do without having to go through getting a gun. And if you use a real firearm, you need to go to classes. You need to make sure that you're using it safely, that it's stored safely, that you know what you're doing, because it's really easy to discharge a bullet without knowing that you're doing it, just in the loading and unloading and one being in the chamber and you don't know it. So they're not to be taken lightly. But there's other options out there. Okay, so just be prepared, even if it's one of those that makes a lot of noise. Um, when you walk with your keys, carry it like, if this is your key, carry it like this so that you can stab somebody with it. Okay. Um, look around before you walk out of a building. See who's out there, what's loitering. Look around your car to make sure somebody's not hunkered down in there. A lot of times what is happening to people is they're on their phone, they're not paying attention, they just are in their la-di-da, and that's when stuff happens. So I've worked in really bad parts of town, and I made this kind of habit. And I noticed that when I was in the Philippines, when I walked out the main gate, the little kids didn't come and like surround me and try and steal from me and get money from me. But I'd watch other people, and boy, it was like a magnet. So a lot of it is how you carry yourself. Do you stand upright? Are you walking confidently? Are you aware of what's going on around you and looking and seeing what's going on? Okay. Your presence makes a big difference. So use all of that. And if you don't know how, take a class on it. Look on YouTube. There's lots of things on it. Know how to slow a predator down. I had a home invasion, big black guy. I mean, he was big. I was looking like at nipple line, okay, and I was like, oh boy. And he had a club. He had a 4x4 post, and he was choked up and ready to bat my head off. And I was writing strikes on, and I had to do some real quick thinking. The first thing I did was I stayed calm. Second, I was trying to talk him down. Well, it was pretty apparent that wasn't going to work, and so he wanted my car, and I gave him the keys. It wasn't worth fighting over. When he was almost out to the car, then I picked up my phone and started dialing 911. He heard me, he heard the beep, 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 and turned around and started coming after me, and I threw the phone. Well, that was just enough for me to run and get to my neighbor's house. Had I not thrown that phone, I would probably not be here right now. So you need to trust your instincts and learn how to think fast on your feet. He got caught. He's in jail now. My car got wrecked, but because he did steal it. But you know what? Stuff rusts, and money comes and money goes. The bottom line is be prepared. And maybe that's why I have this need to be a watchman, because this happened to me on a Monday morning, and the guy came into my house, the door was open, it was August, I let the dog out to go potty and was just, looking for my keys and stuff to go to work. The last thing on my mind was somebody coming into my house trying to kill me. And so be aware, okay? There's lots of threats going on, and usually at some point when you have a predator and they're threatening, they do attack. Especially if they feel cornered, especially if they feel like all of their lifelines are going to be taken away. So pay attention, but don't fear. Get in prayer. If all of us get in prayer and we call to our Father and say, please help us, we don't want this, we want a godly nation, and we stand up for that and we act that way, I truly believe God will spare us. But if we allow an evil government and evil people doing evil things to run this country like we have with the transgenderism and with the LGBTQ alphabet stuff and with everything else, and again, I want to really emphasize, I'm not talking that we war against people. We are warring. This is a spiritual war. We war not against flesh and blood, but about powers and principalities and rulers in high places. Okay, these are demonic, and every country has a demon over them, a prince, and then under them are their minions, right? And when I say to watch what you allow your kids to do, watch what you allow yourself to do, know that I'm talking about not opening the door for those demons. Oh, and back to across the border, there was one other thing I wanted to make sure I mentioned. When you have 10, 20, 30 million people coming from all over the world, they're bringing disease with them, even if they're not trying to do it in a nefarious way. So you're going to see spikes in measles and mumps and hepatitis and syphilis and everything else because they don't vaccinate the way we do. They don't use antibiotics the way we do. They don't have the health care that we have. And again, I think this purposeful to bring in all these diseases to then say, oh, you need this vaccine, or you need this, or you need that. And when they do that, it's that part of the equation that's nefarious. Don't think that these people aren't going to cause epidemics. This bird flu thing is probably some other disease that has been in Africa or South America or somewhere else in the world that they're just bringing in, and they are immune to it, but we're not going to be. Think about the Indians when we brought smallpox over. It killed hundreds of thousands of them because they didn't have the protection that the Europeans did. It's the same kind of thing when you allow mass migration. So the minute you hear them wanting to give you a jab of something, you better think about that open border and what they have allowed to happen. If they really cared about you, they would have stopped that. And I'm not anti-migration. My mom was Austrian, but she did it legally. And she became a US citizen and she took the test and she naturalized that way. There are legal ways to do this. But coming across the border and the very first act you do is criminal is not a good way to start your life in this country. And we would not, no other country allows that. So we need to end that for many, many reasons. And one is public health. One is protecting us from war from, armies within our country. Okay, so listen when you hear those things. Listen, because like with the bird flu, I told you that the one in Louisiana, one of the key things was it was a backyard bird because they don't want you to raise your own chickens. And you know the risk of getting sick from one of the chickens you raise yourself is about zero. If you raise it in a halfway decent way and take good care of it, those birds are far more well taken care of than any bird in a big barn with hundreds of thousands. Come on now. Again, think. So, on that note, keep looking up, waiting for that blessed hope, which is our God, our great Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Pray to the Father. Pray to Jesus for protection, for discernment. Ask for that hedge of protection. Walk your property and ask for a hedge of protection around the property for your animals, for your kids, for your family. Pray, pray, pray. There is power in prayer. And the best chance of our country being war-free and surviving is prayer. Share the gospel. Get more people on the ark. The more people that are on the ark and praying, the more power we have. If there's 3 of us, we have some power. If there's 10 of us, we have more power. If there's 1,000, we have even more power. If there's 100,000, more power. If 100 million, whew, God's going, okay, this country loves me and cares, and it's time to step in. So it's not a little thing. It's very powerful. So again, Merry Christmas. Be aware, be prepared, don't be afraid. For God does not give us a spirit of fear, but a power, love, and a sound mind. So use that power, use that love, and use that sound mind. Okay? I love you. We're going to get through this. And have a very Merry Christmas. Bye-bye.